Welcome back to Honest News. You know, sometimes, folks, you have to choose your battles, right? You got to choose who you're going to expose and who you're not going to expose, because you can't expose everybody. And sometimes it's counterproductive, because sometimes when you're exposing somebody, you can hinder another person from getting to the Lord because they turn you off. But in this case, I think it's very important that I bring this to your attention. What I'm about to share with you is Tammy Faye Bakker back in 1998 on the Roseanne Barr talk show. And she's talking about some different things in her own life and whatnot, but then she gets into talking about her passion for helping teenagers, and it quickly turns to her son, Jay Bakker, that is sitting in the crowd of people, sitting in the audience, and I want you to hear what she has to say about him. And she's talking to Roseanne about it. It's okay to have tattoos and piercings. And she talks about how her son has it, the piercings and the tattoos and such. But then I want to share with you Jay Bakker to date. Okay? I want to share with you what he has become. His mother says he's become a minister. And he's got a church called Revolution. Remember, I've been teaching you about revolution, because revolution is also, it's rebellion, right? With no further ado, let's go ahead and get into this.
One I always go to. I went back to God, and I said, God, I belong to you. And if it's time for me to go to heaven, okay. But if it's not, I'm going to work on this just as hard as I can. I began to go on a good eating regimen. I went on all kinds of vitamins. I believe in vitamin therapy. I believe that it certainly can't hurt. If it doesn't help, it certainly can't hurt. And I think today so much of the good is taken out of our food.
But did you make a decision in your head, Tammy Faye, that you went, I'm going to beat this?
Yes. Oh, yes. And I decided I would beat it through laughter, through a good attitude, and not giving up and not...
Why do you think that you were allowed to live? Is there a reason that you were allowed to live?
I think I got lots of stuff to do.
Like what? What do you want to do?
I have a real heart for teenagers. I really do. I love kids. And I feel that they have not been given a format and a way to get out and say what they feel in this world.
I think that too. I do
and
too.
I would love to someday do a talk show with teenagers and just let them loose and let them be who they are. I want to go where they are. I want to go to the tattoo parlors. I want to go to the piercing parlors.
Well, now your son's
I want to be
here.
where they are.
Where's your boy? Because he's got all pierced and tattooed.
Yeah,
he is. This is Tammy Faye's son, Jay. Stand up.
That's my baby.
That's your baby. He's pierced here and here. I got 4 big kids.
Yeah.
So I've been through it all.
You've been through it all.
Oh, they're all pierced and tattooed.
I really think, somebody says, well, I wouldn't have let my son do that. I said, listen, I picked my battles. And what they put on their skin or put through their skin is not really any of importance. What they are in here is what's important. And I hope that I've taught Jamie great values. And that's what the importance is. My husband's a minister today. He's with Revolution, and he's a minister of the gospel. And that kid loves God, and he helps a lot of people that have tattoos and rings in their nose and rings in their ears and rings in their eyebrows.
And so do you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry that went quite long. It was actually more video footage there than I wanted to play. But now, let's go to the video footage of recent of Jay Bakker, his own ministry, if you will. And you're going to notice how well he's speaking to this group of people at this church, that they're on board with him at the beginning. But then he gets on a certain subject and the whole place goes silent. And they start looking at him like he's a heretic, because he is a heretic. Total heretic. But let me go ahead and play this for you.
The dream, it's the vision of community and change happening. I'll tell you what, you are the temple of God. So in order for us to be able, we can live that dream because the dream is within us. I love speaking here because you guys, oh yes, hallelujah, praise God. And so often we don't want to change in the church. We don't want to look at things differently. But we can if we're practicing things like justice and being gentle. God blesses those who are persecuted because they live for God. Just recently I had a pastor tell me that he felt that God was against me and that Jesus was against me. He forgot the Holy Spirit, so that's cool. I'm good with him. And that my whole ministry was going to disintegrate and dissolve and be destroyed. Well, and the reason is because I came out in the church recently and said, you know what? I'm pro-gay marriage. I don't believe that that's a sin. I got dang quiet. Everybody's like, I ain't saying no now. I guess we're not ready for this yet, are we? It's hard for me when people who've been through such persecution and been judged against, all of a sudden, they don't want freedom for anybody else. We got to start living it, folks. That's why it's a narrow road. That's why it gets quiet in a church where everybody was hooting and hollering 5 minutes ago. So maybe you'll get mad and go home and yell, but maybe eventually you'll get over it and you'll realize that you might not agree with me, but at least you can learn to love me.
Those people were letting him know that they didn't agree with him. Right? But you know, and I don't have the video right now. Maybe we'll play it at a different time, but Jim Bakker or Jay Bakker was asked on another interview about Christianity, and he actually admitted that he questions his own faith. He said there's so many other religions out there. And he's questioning his own faith. So, do you see the fruit of Jim Bakker's ministry, folks? Of Jim and Tammy Faye? That's the fruit. Right there. That's the fruit. A rebellious, stubborn, doesn't know if he's straight or queer, doesn't know what he believes. Confused. So confused. This is the fruit of a ministry that is all about money. Jim Bakker was all about money. Still is. You know, God has some very serious judgment for people like this. Jim Bakker has no remorse. You know, he cried when he was going to prison. Cried like a little baby. Act like a, but no remorse for what he has done. Now he's just at it again. Making money off of buckets of food. Working with the likes of Jonathan Cahn. A Zionist. Supporting Israel. I wish I had this other video to show you where Jay Bakker's actually questioning his own faith. This person that's interviewing him finally gets him to admit it. And It's very serious. Very serious hour we're living in. But thankfully, this church that we were just listening to, where he was just ministering at, thankfully, they were not afraid to let him know that they didn't agree. And I guarantee you, if the minister's the same way as the people are there in that congregation, that he will never speak in that church again. Now, from my understanding, is he has a church or ministry called Revolution, and it's inside of a little building that's not even a church building. It's not big enough for a church, but it's a bar. That's right. And there's plenty of video out there where you can go see it for yourself, folks. There's plenty of video out there. If you really want to inform yourself. But I would like to play this video for you if I can find it, because people need to know what's going on out there. God's people need to know. If I could find this... well, let me show you a little bit more fruit. Let me just show you a little more fruit of Jim Bakker's ministry in a moment. I want to show you that video as well, so we'll show you that one too. But before we do that, I want you to see an interview with Jay. I think this is it right here. Pretty sure this is it. Yeah, and he's got a book out. It's called Fall to Grace instead of Fallen from Grace. It's called Fall to Grace. Folks, I have to do this. I have to expose these things. You know that. I've got to. The Bible says, it says, have nothing to do with the unfruitful works of darkness, rather reprove them.
Issue, a stand that nearly cost him everything.
I am a gay affirming pastor, which means I don't see it as a sin.
And I would imagine you hear from vociferous critics of that position.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Check out the reaction he got when he floated that idea at this black church.
I came out in the church recently and said, you know what? I'm pro-gay marriage. I don't believe that that's a sin. I got dang quiet. Everybody's like, I ain't saying no now. I guess we're not ready for this yet, are we?
This stance has cost Bakker dearly. His church lost most of its financial support. He had to lay off his entire staff. He became a pariah in evangelical circles, and he nearly went broke personally. It was a sort of mini echo of his father's implosion, with one key difference, according to Jay.
Yeah, it was tough, but it was following my conviction. And I think the problem with my dad is that he compromised his convictions in order to raise money, because he felt that pressure.
But I need you to call me right now with your either Visa or Master.
My conviction over this was completely the opposite. I mean, I knew it was going to cost us. I knew what was going to happen, but I felt people are more important than, numbers or churches or approval.
So you've really paid the price for this.
Yeah, but it was worth it. Well, guys, get ready to get fixed. No, I'm just kidding.
liberal theology is the way to go.
In some ways, nearly losing it all has liberated Jay Bakker. He now feels comfortable getting up in front of his congregation and touching the third rail. Doubt. You have moments where you say to yourself, I'm not sure if the stuff that I'm preaching is true.
Yeah, I mean, I have a time, there's a lot of religions out there. There's a lot of faiths out there. There's a lot of stuff out there. And you say, well, what is this my concept of Jesus? Is this like some American idea, or is it because I was raised this way?
You're essentially saying, I don't know if today I'm actually a Christian.
Or I believe in it. I mean, I might still be a Christian, but I don't know if I believe in it. I question. Yeah, I mean, doubt is part of faith. And I think we make it seem like it's not. And so people get freaked out and get lonely and scared when they go through doubt or when they lose their faith. And I think...
Did you hear what he said? He said doubt is part of faith. Doubt is an enemy of faith. And he's saying doubt is a part of faith. This is the fruit of Jim Bakker's ministry, folks. Okay? He doesn't even know if he believes in being a Christian. He says that the sin that God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah over is no longer a sin. And that those that preach it is a sin, that they take it out of context. This is the fruit. This is bad fruit. This is rotten fruit. Amen? You shall know them by their fruits. This is the fruit of Jim Bakker's ministry. That's right. And you need to know this, people. You need to see this. And so he's been on CNN. He's been on the different news networks where he's actually letting people know that he's... Here's one more on CNN, and then we'll close up with this here.
Talking politics and religion now with Jay Bakker. Jay is a pastor of Revolution Church in New York. He's the son of Jim Bakker and the late Tammy Faye Bakker Mesner, and also the author of a book. The book is called Fall to Grace.
Work at young people who have turned away from their faith and who feel left out of traditional worship. Do you blame the church, or do you think politics play a role in that as well?
Well, I would definitely say the church and politics both play a role, because it's not really just young people, it's everybody. I mean, we have so many different folks who attend our church who've just been hurt or burnt out by the church or not felt welcomed, or in maybe their darkest time were asked to leave the church. And so we've just tried to be a place for healing for that, or for people who have nothing to do with the church. I feel like we're sometimes a waiting room. Either people are on their way out or their way in.
Let's talk about this. You welcome gay worshipers to your church, and you've told me before that you don't consider being gay to be a sin. So what's your reactions to the president's announcement this week about same-sex couples being allowed to marry?
I was extremely excited about it. I'm so happy about it. I hope we get past the point of state law and we move it to federal law. But right now, I'm just happy that the president spoke out for civil, what I can see is the continuing of civil rights.
Mm-hmm. And you're a straight guy. It's not that you have any dog in the fight, right? Because you're gay. You're a straight guy and you believe this. And you said to me during the commercial break after I spoke with Julian Bond and I talked about Joseph Lowery and the civil rights movement and comparing this, what did you say? You said it was an honor to be...
Yeah, well, and just to be amongst those men, to be sitting here and having an interview with you, because, we're not trying to, comparing civil rights, I don't want to steal civil rights or someone's movement, but it's a movement that we can learn from, and a movement that can cause us to grow. And so, doing this type of work, I think one of the things that keeps me going is reading the writings of MLK or Gandhi or things like that, because it's so easy to get discouraged when you're working on the behalf of others.
Okay, so we talked about the black church, right? And listen, I know not all, I'm generalizing here, not all African Americans are going to be in church tomorrow. Not all African Americans are Christians, but a large portion of them are. and they will be going to church tomorrow for Mother's Day. And it's interesting that this came out, the letter, and the president, the administration, as Julian Bond said, would be smart to get ahead of this. So how do you, you're a minister, prepare a sermon for tomorrow after what the president said, and then considering the traditional beliefs on what the Bible says about homosexuality and about marriage?
Well, I hope people will use this as a point to realize that we've got to start working towards equality. Whether, religion isn't an excuse to be a tyrant. Religion, we shouldn't use our religion as an excuse to make people believe what we believe. I hope it will be something about inclusion. I hope we'll remember people like Jay Jones, who I talked about earlier, who took his own life because he was bullied about being gay. So, we've got all these problems that people are having to pay, all these consequences that kids are paying for this anti-gay rhetoric. And I really hope that people in the church will stop it and not use this as a point for more rhetoric.
What about Leviticus? Marriage is between a man and a woman. It's an abomination for man to sleep with man or woman to sleep with woman. That's
Leviticus, they're going to use Romans, they're going to use all these verses, but the fact is they are not talking about what me and you understand as being gay and lesbian, transgender now. People always say, well, they talk about shellfish or things like that as well. But Leviticus is Old Covenant. And as far as what we read in the New Testament, that has more to do with worshiping other gods or prostitution in ministry.
Yeah. Jay Bakker, thank you. I wish I could spend more time with you, but we appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.